Welcome to D&D at 6. I'm your host, Monty Core, and tonight we're covering Wizards of the Coast's most recent announcement that there will not be an open gaming license with 1D&D. Now I have with me T. Barnabas Jones, Esquire, a renowned D&D rules lawyer. What exactly does not having an OGL for 1D&D mean?
Greetings, Monty. That is indeed the question. You see, Wizards of the Coast, or WOTC, if you will, has chosen to forego releasing an OGL in the past with 4th edition, and it did not go well for them.
Are you saying that 4th edition's utter failure was due to the lack of an OGL?
Well, not entirely, but in part, yes. We cannot ignore that, by and large, many D&D players had a particular distaste for 4th edition itself. However, combining that with the lack of an open gaming license is what propelled Paizo to the level of success it achieved with Pathfinder.
So you're saying that a lack of an OGL strengthened a competitor? That seems counterintuitive.
Correct. At first glance, one would think that not providing an OGL would be a solid business decision, forcing players and game masters to only buy official D&D products, since third-party content is not legally allowed for the new edition.
And yet that didn't happen with 4th edition.
No, it did not, to put it mildly. What happened instead is that since players are often slow to transition to a new edition, or simply don't like the new content, many of them were left looking for 3.5 content that they could use in their games, but there was no longer any official 3.5 content being released.
Which in turn created a prime opportunity for third-party content creators, such as Paizo, to capitalize upon, since there was an OGL for 3.5.
Precisely. And that is exactly the situation we're finding ourselves in right now. D&D 5th edition, which is widely loved by players, has an open gaming license, but the next edition, 1D&D, does not.
But according to WOTC spokespersons, 1D&D isn't a new edition, so why?
Oh, please, let's not allow the marketing rhetoric to obfuscate the truth here, Monty. 1D&D is a new edition, else why would the lack of an OGL matter? If it were one and the same, third-party content creators could publish content for 1D&D under the OGL for 5th edition.
Oh, I see, that does make sense. So what are your predictions for third-party D&D content publishers?
Well, first, Monty, I would speculate that there's going to be an explosion of third-party D&D content for 5th edition. Once WOTC transitions to only creating content for 1D&D, there are still going to be plenty of dungeon masters and players running 5th edition, and we will end up having a content vacuum.
Which I presume means that players and game masters will start gobbling up 5th edition third-party content?
Exactly, Monty. Third-party publishers in the 5e space will get a massive influx of new customers.
And I imagine that with 5th edition being such a popular edition of D&D, there will be a lot of players who decide to stick with it.
Yes, indeed, Monty. Now, our current data models and divination spells show that in the first year, only 15% of the player base will transition to 1D&D. The rest will stick with 5e. And by years 2 and 3, it doesn't get much better. Most of the player base will still be playing 5th edition.
Incredible! So why then would Wizards of the Coast not release an OGL for 1D&D?
3 reasons, Monty. First, if there's anything that we learned from history, it's that we are doomed to repeat it. Second, optimism bias. Executives at Wizards of the Coast are riding a high from the surge in sales due to the pandemic, and they believe D&D is entering its golden age and has become untouchable.
Pride doth cometh before the fall.
Indeed. And the third reason is simply stockholder and parent company pressure to increase profits. Well, when you combine all of those things together, you have a perfect storm that would tempt any C-suite to make a horrible, irrevocable business decision.
Well, there you have it, folks. What do you think? Is this the end of an era? Is 1D&D and Wizards of the Coast doomed? Okay, we now have breaking news that the coastal wizards of evil intent are in fact on trial even now for their OGL. If you'd like to see how this turns out, head on over to the Peak D&D YouTube channel at the link on the screen or down below. This is Monty Core, signing off.